Welcome to Trans Theories, a show where we talk about everything Transformers. I'm Jason. Today we're going to be talking about what happened to Drift's helicopter mode in Transformers The Last Night. And before we start, this video is brought to you by the Phantom HQ. Now let's get down into this theory. So Drift is a very interesting character in Transformers Age of Extinction because he introduced to us the concept of double changers, which meant he could transform from a helicopter to a Bugatti Veyron. But the thing with Drift is, he can only pick one mode at a time. In other words, he can't just turn from a car into a helicopter. So basically, if he was in his Bugatti Veyron form and wanted to transform into a helicopter, he would first have to transform into his robot mode, and then transform into a helicopter, like we saw when the Autobots were storming KSI. But Drift is not your ordinary helicopter because he isn't one. Let me explain. As you can see in this shot, we can see that Drift has his Bugatti grill, Bugatti tires, samurai swords, and knee pads. But the samurai swords and knee pads are going to be the most important to Drift's helicopter form. So when Drift transforms, we can see him put his swords to the top of his helicopter mode, which then become his helicopter blades. But if you were paying attention in the last shot, he was only holding one sword in his hand, and the other was nowhere to be seen. Well, sadly, this is another continuity error in Bay's universe, and a good example of this is when Drift was talking to Hound. As we can see Drift hold one sword on his back, and when it changes into a wider shot, we can see Drift having two swords on his back, and then he uses them to point them at Hound. And the best explanation for this is, the sword was stored inside Drift's back, and then it popped back out because he felt threatened by Hound. And with this continuity error, it's definitely not the first of its kind, and I did a video similar to it on how Balmy got his battle hammer in The Last Night, so don't forget to check that video out when you're done with this one. And with this information out of the way, we can easily say that his second longsword was stored inside of his back when he transformed into a helicopter, and when he transformed, his sword popped out to become a rudder. And remember when I talked about the knee pads? Well, we can see them right here. Now you may be wondering, Trance, where are you going with all this? Well, what I'm trying to say is that Drift is a part shifter, and in other words, a Transformer can become a part shifter if they scan a second alternate mode, which has a function completely different from their first alternate mode. And in this case, that second alternate mode that Drift scanned was a helicopter, and here's where part shifting comes into play. Since a regular Transformer can only have one alternate mode, it becomes a conflict when they scan a second one. So the Transformer requires the main function of the second alternate mode, and in Drift's case, it would be flight. So, if he wanted to transform into a helicopter, his robot and Bugatti Veyron parts would shift into what would resemble a helicopter. And that's why we can see some of Drift's robot and vehicle parts on the helicopter when he is in the desert. But when Transformers The Last Night comes around, why don't we see any trace of Drift's helicopter mode in the first place? Well, the answer to this is not very fun, but the reason why we don't see Drift's helicopter mode in The Last Night is not because of his new vehicle mode, it's because that Drift did not feel that he had to use it because he only uses his helicopter mode for important purposes, like he did in Age of Extinction when helping Bumblebee get the Cade, and when he had to get off those rocks quickly to meet up with the leader of the Autobots, Optimus Prime. Well, that's over this video. I hope you learned something new about the Transformers Cinematic Universe. Also, if you're new to Trans Theories, don't forget to subscribe to join the Theorist Nation, and also consider joining my Patreon squad if you're interested. As always, this has been Trans Theories saying, keep on theorizing.